Most first-time buyers in Hamilton miss at least one of these hidden costs, and trust me, each one can cost you thousands if you're not prepared for them. Even the smartest buyers get blindsided because nobody talks about these until it's too late. But don't panic. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to prepare for each of them, because the last thing that you want when you just bought a house is to find out that you also need to get a second job and maybe a therapist. Now, some of these costs you might have heard of before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're prepared for them. And a lot of buyers underestimate how bad they can hit. My name is Steve Lopresti. I'm a real estate agent in Hamilton, Ontario. So if you have any questions at all about buying your first home or any of these hidden costs, feel free to reach out to me. My contact info is in the description. Now, you know what they say, the only two guarantees in life are death and taxes. Now, personally, I've never died, so I can't be 100% sure that death is real, but what I do know for sure is that taxes are real. And one of them that's guaranteed to show up the moment that you buy a house is land transfer tax. This is a one-time tax that you pay upfront whenever you buy a home in Ontario, and it gets progressively worse the more expensive the house is. If you're buying something that's around, say, $700,000, which is fairly typical in Hamilton, you're looking at a land transfer tax bill of around $10,000.
Damn!
Now, before you have a heart attack, if you're a first-time buyer, you can qualify for a rebate of up to $4,000 on this, which it doesn't cover the entire thing, but it definitely helps. Most people are still left owing a few $1,000s, and I've seen buyers completely forget about this and then are left scrambling at the last minute. A couple things to keep in mind with this tax is that you can't roll it into your mortgage, you can't defer it, you can't avoid it. You have to pay it in full on closing day, and you need to have the cash put aside in order to do so. Now, I know this video is already off to a bad start. We're only on cost number 1, but the good news is the fact that you're here and you already know about this means that you're prepared and you can build this into your budget so you don't get blindsided later on. But land transfer tax isn't the only expense that you're going to pay when you close on the home. In fact, there's a whole cluster of expenses that can hit you right before you get the keys, and some of them big, some of them small, but all of them are annoying. These are your closing costs, all the fun little bills that you need to pay before the house becomes yours. Now, you're probably aware that you'll need a lawyer to close your deal when you buy a house, but what most people aren't aware of is that your legal fees aren't just one flat rate. Obviously, there's the fee that your lawyer will charge you for their time, but there's also other little extra things thrown in there like title insurance, government registration fees, courier costs, paper shuffling fees, and basically anything else that your lawyer paid for while handling your file, including sending a fax even though it's 2025. In total, you're probably looking at anywhere from around $2,000 to $4,000 in costs that are coming out of your pocket. And your mortgage does not cover this, it's got to come from your own cash. But again, now that you know, you have the opportunity to build that buffer into your budget before it's too late. Here's another fun one that people don't normally find out about until their lawyer drops it on them in the final paperwork. Prepaid property taxes. When a seller pays their property taxes in advance, you now have to reimburse them for that amount that they've paid. So let's say they already paid for January to March, they paid for the quarter, and you move in mid-February. You're now on the hook to pay them for that last 6 weeks of property taxes that they already paid. You basically have to pay it back to them because now you're the one owning the house for that period, not them. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about this one. Like I said, death and taxes. But what I normally advise my first-time buyer clients is to budget about $1,000 for this, just to be safe. It could be less, it could be more, but I find that $1,000 should cover it in most cases. But it will really depend on various factors like the price of the home and what time of year you're buying it at. Real quick, if you're a first-time buyer in Hamilton, I put together a free guide that breaks down everything you need to know before you start house hunting. It breaks down the hidden costs in depth and how to avoid the most common mistakes that first-time buyers make. So the link is down in the description. Go grab a copy and you'll thank me later. You ever look at a condo listing and think, wow, this place is actually pretty affordable. And then you scroll down a little bit and you see that $700 per month condo fee, and suddenly it's not so affordable anymore. Condo fees are monthly expenses that cover things like building maintenance, insurance, garbage removal, snow clearing, and sometimes your utilities are roped into them as well. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's part of what makes condo life simple, especially if you're somebody who doesn't really feel like shoveling the driveway at 6 a.m. But you need to factor this into your affordability affordability because that $700 a month is not optional. And your mortgage lender is also going to include that when they're calculating your debt ratios, which means you're going to be able to qualify for less of a purchase price than you could have originally. And that's not even the best part. When you're buying a condo, you also got to think about special assessments. That's just when the building needs some type of major repair, such as the roof being replaced, balconies, plumbing, and the condo board doesn't have enough money in the reserve fund to cover the whole thing. So instead, they bill you, sometimes thousands of dollars and usually completely out of nowhere. That's why I always recommend when you're buying a condo that you put in a condition to review the condo status certificate. What this does is it gives your lawyer some time to dig into the financials of the condo to figure out how much money is in the reserve fund, what the risk of a special assessment is, how the money is being managed, things like that. You'll give them an opportunity to spot any red flags before you are on the hook and you sign your life away. You don't want to be the one who has to foot the bill when the elevator stops working or the roof caves in. And if you think surprise bills from your condo board are bad, wait until your bank charges you thousands for making a completely reasonable life decision. Let's talk about mortgage penalties. Most people lock into a 5-year fixed rate mortgage because it seems safe. It's got predictable payments, you get your peace of mind, it sounds great. However, things don't always go according to plan, and while I do recommend you do buy a house for the long term, at least 5 years, and you should be thinking that far ahead, sometimes things change. You might get a new job, you have to move to a new place, or something happens, and you decide that you want to break that mortgage term early. But what's going to happen is your mortgage lender is going to hit you with a penalty for doing that. Now, if you're on a variable rate mortgage, it's usually about 3 months interest, which is fairly manageable, but it's a different story if you're on a fixed rate. In that case, they're going to calculate something called the interest rate differential, which is just a convoluted way of saying that they're going to charge you whatever makes them the most money. And depending on how much time is left and how rates have changed, that number can be thousands. I had a client whose penalties were in the 5 figures. There's nothing quite like paying 12 grand to not own something anymore. So when you're choosing a mortgage, don't just look at the rate that you're getting. You want to look at the terms that you're getting as well. Ask your mortgage broker to break this down for you, and don't always focus on which rate is the best. Focus on which overall situation makes sense for you. And most importantly, make sure that your life plans actually match the mortgage term that you're signing up for. Because if there's even a chance that you might be moving in the next few years, you need to choose a mortgage that will accommodate that. This is why it's also important that you work with a qualified mortgage broker who can explain this to you and break this all down. When buying your first home in Hamilton, it's not just the price on the listing that's important. There's a whole ecosystem of little landmines that can blow up your budget if you're not prepared. Now, if you've made it this far, then give yourself a little pat on the back because you've already done more homework than 90% of first-time homebuyers. But if you want to really be ready to buy your first home, then click the link in the description to book a free call with me. We'll go over your plan, your budget, and I'll make sure that nothing sneaks up on you. There's no obligation to do anything if you're not ready, and if you just have a couple questions to ask, that's all good too. Also, don't forget to grab my free first-time buyer guide while you're at it. It's got a full breakdown of the home buying process, what to expect, and what mistakes to avoid. All right, you still with me? Awesome. Check out this video right here for some more Hamilton real estate home buying tips. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video for more videos like this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.